The first thing my mother-in-law did when she moved into my house was hand me a printed sheet of paper. The second thing she did was tell me where I was allowed to sleep. The third thing was much worse. She looked at my husband and said, "You promised me this was my home now." My husband went completely silent. And that was the moment I understood that the woman standing in my kitchen with 2 suitcases and a smug smile had not come to stay for a few days. She had come with a plan. It was 8:42 on a Thursday evening when the doorbell rang. I remember the time because I had just taken a tray of roasted vegetables out of the oven, and my husband Daniel had promised we would finally sit down and eat dinner without checking our phones. We had been married for 17 years. Our house was small by the standards of most suburban families, but it was ours. 3 bedrooms, 1 office, a narrow backyard with a lemon tree that refused to die no matter how badly I neglected it. Daniel and I had bought it 8 years earlier. Every wall had a memory attached to it. The scratch beside the staircase came from the day we moved the old dining table upstairs. The blue paint in the hallway was my choice. The framed photograph above the fireplace was from our 10th anniversary. And the little office at the end of the hall was mine. Not technically mine, but emotionally completely mine. It was where I worked, paid bills, edited photographs, stored family documents, and occasionally shut the door when I needed 10 minutes of silence. I had no idea that by sunrise, someone else would be sleeping in that room. The doorbell rang again. Daniel looked up from the television. "Were you expecting someone?" "No." Another ring. Longer this time. I sighed and wiped my hands on a kitchen towel. Maybe it's a delivery. Daniel stood up. I followed him. When he opened the door, I expected a delivery driver. Instead, I saw his mother, Evelyn. Behind her stood Daniel's younger sister, Marissa. And behind Marissa were 4 suitcases. Not overnight bags. Suitcases. Large ones. The kind people take when they have no intention of returning home. Evelyn was 68, perfectly dressed, wearing a cream coat and holding a leather handbag that probably cost more than my first car. She smiled at me. "Finally." I blinked. "Finally what?" "We've arrived." Daniel's face changed. It was subtle. His shoulders dropped. His mouth tightened. He looked at his mother, then at Marissa, then at the suitcases. "Mom." Evelyn stepped inside without waiting to be invited. Marissa followed. One suitcase bumped against my shoe. "Careful," I said. Marissa didn't apologize. Evelyn looked around the living room. "Oh, you've changed the curtains." I stared at her. "Yes. They were nicer before." Daniel closed the door. I looked at him. He wouldn't meet my eyes. That was when I knew. Something had been decided. And apparently I had not been included in the decision. I folded my arms. "Daniel." He finally looked at me. "Let's talk." "No," Evelyn said. I turned toward her. She smiled. "This is a family matter. We can talk after dinner." I actually laughed. Not because anything was funny, because I genuinely couldn't believe what I was hearing. "After dinner?" She nodded. "Yes. We're exhausted." Marissa dropped onto our sofa. "Do you still have the guest room?" I looked at Daniel. He swallowed. "Mom and Marissa are going to stay for a while." "How long is a while?" Evelyn answered for him. "We'll see." That phrase, "we'll see," it sounded harmless. It wasn't. I had learned over the years that "we'll see" was often what Daniel said when he was afraid to tell me the truth. I looked at the suitcases again. "How long have you been planning this?" Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Evelyn sighed. "Don't make this difficult, Claire." My name sounded like an accusation. "I'm not making anything difficult. I'm asking why my mother-in-law and sister-in-law just arrived at my house with their entire lives and luggage." Evelyn sat down. "Because my house is being sold." I stared at her. "What?" She waved one hand dismissively. "The buyer closes tomorrow." Daniel looked at the floor. My stomach dropped. You sold your house? Yes. And you didn't tell me? I told Daniel. I slowly turned toward my husband. You knew. He rubbed his forehead. Claire, I was going to tell you. When? Tonight. I looked at the 4 suitcases. Apparently you waited until your mother told me. That's not fair. Neither is finding out that your mother sold her house and is moving into ours while I'm holding a casserole dish. Marissa rolled her eyes. It's not forever. I looked at her. Then where are you going afterward? She didn't answer. Evelyn did. Marissa needs somewhere to stay too. There it was. The real reason. I looked at Daniel. His silence told me everything. You're both moving in. Nobody answered. They didn't have to. Evelyn smiled. We're family. I had heard those 2 words from her for 17 years. Usually right before she asked for something. I walked back into the kitchen. The vegetables were getting cold. I turned off the oven. For a few seconds nobody spoke. Then Marissa called from the living room. Claire. What? Which bedroom is mine? I stopped. I turned around. You're kidding. She looked genuinely confused. No. The guest room. That's too small. I stared at her. Evelyn said. Marissa needs the bigger room. I almost laughed again. The bigger room is our bedroom. Evelyn nodded. Yes. That's why we're going to make a few adjustments. Daniel stood. Mom. She ignored him. She reached into her handbag. Then she pulled out a folded sheet of paper. She handed it to me. Since we're all going to be under one roof, I thought it would be easier if we had some house rules. I unfolded the paper. At the top, in bold letters, it said, House rules. Underneath were 12 numbered items. Wake-up time 6:30 a.m. Breakfast served at 7 o'clock. Kitchen cleaned immediately after use. No television after 9:30. Laundry days assigned by person. Guests must be approved in advance. Quiet hours begin at 9 o'clock. The downstairs bedroom would be temporarily reserved for Evelyn. The office would become shared family space. And Daniel and I would move upstairs. I read the list twice. Then I looked at Evelyn. Where did you get this? I made it. I can see that. She smiled. I thought structure would make things easier. For whom? She looked genuinely surprised. For everyone. I folded the paper. Then I handed it back. No. Her smile disappeared. No. No. Daniel looked at me. Claire. I held up my hand. I'm not arguing about whether your mother needs help. I'm not arguing about whether she can stay somewhere. I'm not even arguing about whether Marissa needs temporary housing. I looked directly at Evelyn. But nobody moves into my home and hands me a schedule telling me when I'm allowed to eat breakfast. Evelyn's face hardened. Your home? Yes. Our house, Daniel said quietly. I turned toward him. Our house. Evelyn smiled. Exactly. I looked at Daniel again. He didn't understand what had just happened. His mother had heard our house. I heard something else. Permission. A claim. A warning. I took a breath. Your mother can stay tonight. Daniel looked relieved. But tomorrow, I continued, we decide what happens next. Evelyn stood. I've already decided. I looked at her. So have I. For the first time that evening, she looked uncertain. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. I went upstairs. I closed our bedroom door. Daniel followed me a few minutes later. He stood near the door. Please don't make this a war. I turned around. Your mother already moved into our house without asking me. She had nowhere to go. She owned a house yesterday. She sold it. And you helped her. He didn't answer. I sat on the edge of the bed. How long have you known? He looked down. A month. The room went quiet. A month. She said she was thinking about selling. And you never told me? I didn't think it was definite. She signed a contract, Daniel. I know. When were you planning to tell me? He sighed. I was going to figure it out first. That sentence hurt more than I expected. You were going to figure out where I would live before telling me. That's not what I meant. It is exactly what you meant. He sat down. Claire, my mom is scared. I understand that. She's getting older. I understand that too. Then why are you acting like she's the enemy? I'm not. I looked at him. But I am starting to realize that everyone in your family thinks I'm the enemy whenever I say no. He didn't respond. I looked toward the door. Downstairs, I could hear Evelyn opening cabinets. My cabinets. Then Marissa's voice. Mom, where should I put my clothes? Evelyn answered. In Claire's office for now. I looked at Daniel. He heard it too. Neither of us moved. Then something inside me became very calm. Not angry. Not frightened. Calm. Daniel. What? Go downstairs. He frowned. Why? Tell them nobody touches my office. He looked uncomfortable. Claire. Now. He stood. For the first time in 17 years, I watched my husband walk downstairs because I had asked him to defend a boundary instead of asking me to surrender it. 5 minutes later, I heard Evelyn's voice. Then Marissa's. Then silence. Daniel came back upstairs. He looked exhausted. She said the office isn't really being used at night. I stared at him. It's my office. I know. Did you tell her? Yes. And? She said she'd talk to you tomorrow. I nodded. Okay. He looked surprised. That's it. For tonight. I turned off the lamp. Tomorrow is going to be different. I didn't know how different. I only knew I couldn't continue living the way I had been living. At 5:46 the next morning, I woke up to the sound of furniture moving. I sat up. Daniel was already awake. What is that? He looked toward the door. I don't know. We walked downstairs. The scene waiting for us made me stop on the last step. Our dining table had been pushed against the wall. The chairs had been rearranged. The large television in the living room had been turned off. And Evelyn was standing in the kitchen wearing a robe. She looked at me. Good morning. I looked around. What happened? I'm establishing the household. My eyebrows lifted. Before 6 in the morning? She ignored that. Breakfast is at 7. Daniel walked into the kitchen. Mom, what are you doing? Making things functional. Marissa walked out of the guest room. She was wearing one of my old sweatshirts. I stared at it. That was in my closet. She shrugged. Mom said I could borrow it. I looked at Evelyn. She smiled. Something snapped. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just completely. I walked to the refrigerator. I opened it. Then I removed the sheet of house rules from where Evelyn had taped it to the door. I tore it in half. Then again. Then again. Evelyn gasped. Claire. I dropped the pieces onto the counter. These aren't house rules. She stared at me. Then what are they? Your rules. Daniel stood silently between us. I looked at him. And this is your chance to decide whether you're my husband or just your mother's son. His face went pale. Evelyn stepped forward. How dare you? I didn't look at her. I looked at Daniel. He had spent years avoiding conflict. He called it keeping peace. He called it protecting his mother. He called it being a good son. But I finally understood what it had really been. He had been making me absorb every consequence of his fear. He looked at the torn paper, then at his mother, then at me. Mom! Evelyn folded her arms. Yes. You can't do this. Her expression changed. Excuse me. You can't move into our house and decide how everybody lives. I am your mother. I know. I raised you. I know. I sacrificed everything for you. I know. She took a step toward him. And this is how you repay me? Daniel closed his eyes. For 1 second I thought he would give in. Then he opened them. No. Evelyn went still. No. No. I love you. But loving you doesn't mean you get to control my home. Silence. Marissa laughed bitterly. Wow. Daniel turned toward her. This isn't funny. You're really choosing her? He looked at me, then back at his sister. I'm choosing my marriage. The room became completely silent. I didn't feel victorious. I felt something much stranger. I felt like I was meeting my husband for the first time. Evelyn picked up her handbag. Fine. Daniel frowned. Mom. No. If this is how you feel, I'll leave. I looked at the suitcases. Where will you go? She looked at me, and for the first time I saw fear behind her anger. I don't know. That was the first honest sentence she had spoken since arriving. I softened, but only slightly. Then we can help you find somewhere. She looked confused. You'll help me? Yes. After this? Yes. I paused. But helping you doesn't mean giving you my bedroom. Daniel almost smiled. Evelyn didn't. The next 3 hours changed everything. Daniel called a hotel. I found 2 assisted living communities nearby. Marissa searched apartment listings. Nobody was happy. Nobody got exactly what they wanted. And for once that seemed fair. Evelyn would stay in a hotel for a week while we figured things out. Marissa would stay with a friend. Daniel would help his mother financially. But nobody would move back into our house without both of us agreeing. At 8:15, the suitcases were by the front door. Evelyn stood beside them. She looked at me. You really meant it? Yes. You'd rather have me leave? No. She frowned. I'd rather have you somewhere you chose. She didn't answer. Then she said something I never expected. I thought you hated me. I stared at her. I don't hate you. You act like you do. I act like I don't want you controlling my life. She looked down. Maybe I don't know the difference. That sentence stayed with me. Daniel drove her to the hotel. Marissa went with them. Before they left, Daniel came back inside. He stood in the doorway. Are you okay? I looked around the house. The furniture was still moved. The kitchen was a mess. My office door was open. But for the first time in 8 years I felt like I could breathe. I will be. He nodded. Then he said something that changed the story again. I need to tell you something. What? My mom didn't just sell her house. I waited. She used some of the money to pay Marissa's debts. I closed my eyes. How much? Almost $40,000. I sat down. Why? Credit cards. Car payments. Some legal bills from her divorce. And your mother thought moving in with us would solve the rest. He nodded. Marissa has nowhere stable to live. I understood then. The house wasn't really about Evelyn. It wasn't even about me. It was about a family system that had been operating for years. Evelyn rescued Marissa. Daniel rescued Evelyn. And whenever any of them needed rescuing, I was expected to surrender something. Money, space, time, privacy, peace. I looked at my husband. Do you see it? He nodded slowly. I do now. Then don't rescue them by sacrificing us. He looked at me. I won't. I wanted to believe him. But promises are easy when the crisis is still visible. The real test would come later. And it did. 3 days later, Daniel's phone rang while we were eating dinner. He looked at the screen. Mom. He answered. His expression changed almost immediately. What happened? I watched him. He listened. Then he looked at me. Okay, we'll come. I put down my fork. What happened? She fell. My heart dropped. What? She slipped in the hotel bathroom. We drove there. Evelyn was sitting on the bed when we arrived. She had bruised her hip badly. Nothing was broken, but the doctor wanted someone nearby for several days. Evelyn looked at me. I suppose you feel vindicated. I frowned. Why would I? Because I'm helpless now. I sat beside her. No. I feel worried. She looked away. The doctor gave us instructions. When we got outside, Daniel turned toward me. She needs someone. I know. Could she stay with us temporarily? I stared at him. There it was. The old pattern. The easy solution. The familiar request. But this time I didn't simply say no. I thought. Then I said, she can stay for 5 days. Daniel looked surprised. But there are conditions. What conditions? She stays in the guest room. He nodded. Fine. No house rules. He almost smiled. Agreed. No changing rooms. Agreed. No controlling the kitchen. Agreed. And you handle her medications, appointments, and meals. Daniel nodded. Fair. I looked at him. And if your mother needs more care than we can provide, we find professional help. He hesitated, then nodded. Okay. We brought Evelyn home. For 5 days, something unexpected happened. She was quiet, not controlling, not demanding, just tired. One afternoon I brought her tea. She looked at me. Why are you helping me? Because you're hurt. You don't owe me. No. She looked down at the cup. I owe you an apology. I wasn't ready for it. I sat down. She took a breath. When Daniel was young, his father left. I knew that part. He was 10, she continued. I was terrified. I worked constantly. I thought if I didn't control everything, everything would fall apart. I listened. Then Daniel grew up. But I never stopped being afraid. She looked at me. So when he married you, I thought I was losing him. You weren't. I know that now. She looked around the room. I thought if I stayed close enough, he couldn't disappear. I didn't know what to say. She smiled sadly. And then I made you the price. That sentence hit harder than any apology. I reached across the table. You don't have to disappear from his life. I know. But you can't live mine. She nodded. I understand. 5 days later, Evelyn moved into a small apartment. It wasn't luxurious. It wasn't close enough for her to appear without warning. It was, however, hers. Daniel helped her unpack. I helped organize her kitchen. Marissa came late. She complained about the parking. Then she complained about the apartment. Then Evelyn said something that made the entire room go silent. Marissa, you're 43 years old. Marissa stared at her. I know how old I am. Then act like it. I looked at Daniel. He looked stunned. Evelyn continued. I've spent years rescuing you. Marissa crossed her arms. And I won't anymore. Marissa laughed. You're blaming me now? No. Evelyn's voice was calm. I'm blaming myself. That stopped her. I taught you that every crisis would end with someone else fixing it. Marissa looked at me. Then Daniel. Nobody spoke. Evelyn handed her a set of apartment keys. Your own place is your responsibility. Marissa took them. She looked angry, then hurt, then strangely relieved. She left without saying goodbye. Evelyn watched the door close. Daniel put his hand on her shoulder. You okay? She nodded. I think so. I smiled. That's what boundaries feel like at first. She looked at me. Do you know what I hate? What? You're usually right. I laughed. She did too. It wasn't forgiveness. Not completely. It wasn't friendship. Not yet. But it was something real. Months later, things were different. Evelyn called before visiting. Marissa got a second job and slowly paid down her debts. Daniel learned to say no without apologizing for 20 minutes afterward. And I learned something too. I had spent years believing boundaries were punishments. They weren't. They were instructions for how people could love you without consuming you. One Sunday afternoon, Evelyn came over for dinner. She stood at the door holding a small paper bag. "What's that?" I asked. "Dessert." "You brought dessert?" "Yes." She looked at Daniel. "And I called first." He smiled. "I'm proud of you, Mom." She rolled her eyes. "Don't make a ceremony out of it." We laughed. During dinner, Marissa asked if she could stay late. Evelyn said, "Call Claire." Marissa looked at me. "Is that a rule?" I smiled. "Yes." She laughed. After dinner, I walked into the kitchen. Something white was stuck to the refrigerator. I pulled it off. It was a piece of paper. At the top, in large letters, it said, "House Rules." I turned around. "Evelyn." She laughed from the dining room. "Read it." I looked down. Rule 1. Ask before moving anything. Rule 2. Everyone cleans their own mess. Rule 3. Nobody decides where another adult sleeps. Rule 4. If you're angry, say what you're angry about. Rule 5. Family means you can ask for help. It does not mean you are entitled to it. I looked at Daniel. He smiled. "Who wrote that?" Evelyn raised her hand. "I did." I laughed. "That's actually a good list." She pointed at the bottom. "There's one more." I looked. Rule 6. Coffee is always available. I smiled. "That one I can agree with." Daniel walked over and wrapped an arm around my waist. Evelyn looked at us. Then she said something quietly. "I thought that first night that I was losing my son." Daniel squeezed my hand. "You weren't." She nodded. "I know." She looked at me. I just had to stop confusing having a place in his life with having control over it. Nobody spoke for a moment. Then Marissa called from the dining room. "Mom, where's the coffee?" Evelyn called back. "Make your own." We all burst out laughing. And that was how I knew things had really changed. Not because my mother-in-law had stopped being difficult. Not because my sister-in-law had suddenly become responsible. Not because my husband had transformed overnight into the perfect man. None of that happened. What changed was simpler. We stopped pretending that love required one person to keep surrendering. For 17 years, I had thought keeping peace meant swallowing my anger. I had thought being a good wife meant being flexible. I had thought being a good daughter-in-law meant accepting whatever made everyone else comfortable. But the morning Evelyn handed me those house rules, she accidentally gave me something much more valuable than a list of demands. She gave me a reason to finally write my own. And my first rule was simple. Nobody gets to make themselves at home by making you feel like a stranger in your own. The second was even simpler. If someone loves you, boundaries shouldn't scare them. They should help them understand how to stay. And from that morning on, our family didn't become perfect. It became honest. And somehow that was better.